Okay, I thought I'd try something a little bit different this time. I'm going to give you a personal story why I bought a Kubota lawn tractor. Well, a Kubota subcompact tractor is what it really is. Yeah, it came with a mower deck and a rototiller, but it is not a lawnmower. It's much more than a lawnmower. It's a full-on tractor. Now, why would I buy a Japanese-made piece of equipment as opposed to all the other things I buy, typically North American-made lawn tractors, MTDs, that kind of thing? Well, I have a bit of a personal, I don't know, association with these that I'll get into real quick here, and you'll kind of see where my mind's at when it comes to Kubota tractors and stuff that was built in Japan in the late 70s and early 80s. So I was in high school in the late 70s, and I graduated in 1981, and so I didn't want to go to college, just want to get a factory job. I just wanted to make some money so I could get parts for my car, maybe buy the odd toy, maybe eventually get into motorcycles, that kind of thing. So I felt really fortunate that I got a job at Argo in New Hamburg building amphibious all-terrain vehicles right out of high school. I worked in the machine shop for Ontario Drive and Gear, which was on the other side of the wall from the Argo assembly plant. All one company, but two different divisions. Well, 1982 comes along, and that's the end of it for me. Pink slip in my hand, didn't understand why. I thought I was doing a good job. Well, it turns out it had nothing to do with the quality of your work. Turns out it was the Great Recession of 1982, which was the worst recession since the Depression in the 20s. So I was able to keep my cheap apartment, and I had just bought a fancy new device called a VCR, and I had some blank tapes, and so I would just tape things I found interesting on TV. And one of the things I came across was a documentary on Japanese manufacturing methods and their quality control systems. So I got the tape set up, hit record, and there's no internet then, and there's no cell phones, anything like that. So, it's not very often you just come across a documentary about manufacturing, something I was interested in at the time. So I felt pretty fortunate to get that tape, put it up on the shelf, never touch it again until, fortunately, I landed a job in a local factory building heavy-duty truck leaf spring assemblies, kind that you'd see in a transport truck or heavy-duty military vehicle, the packs of leaf springs. I'm learning the process, I'm learning how to check all the parts, and I've got it all memorized in my head, each part, what the tolerance is, what it's supposed to be. And eventually I thought, this isn't what I saw on the tape that I had made about the Japanese procedures. So I decided to bring the tape into my boss one day. I said, you might want to watch this sometime. There's some interesting things in there. And yeah, a little bit of a shrug. Yeah, okay. Well, boy, did that make an impact on him, because within 2 weeks, we had everybody in a meeting. Everybody's changing systems. We're going to a new quality system. I had to do a statistical analysis and, the bell curve for tolerances and how you keep your tolerances tight. You don't let things wander out of spec, and it's a little more complicated than that, but that's what we're doing. And I felt quite proud that I had instituted some kind of new model, some kind of new manufacturing system that, is going to have a positive effect on the company. And it worked wonderfully. We had the forms up on every machine, and I would come around and measure parts, and you enter the statistics. And one day I got called in the office over something else. An employee in the company had a problem with me, and I got disrespected, we'll just say. Right in front of everybody, my boss threw me under the bus, and I was not happy. I could not wait to get out of there. That moment I said, I'm leaving this company. I'm going to go somewhere else. You know what? I'm a pretty enthusiastic employee. I care about the product. I was a good worker, and I'm not going to take this nonsense. So I left, and that was it for me for manufacturing, for working in a factory. I got into drafting. I got into an engineering office in an electrical control panel company, and then shortly after that into land surveying and figuring out boundary law and how to draw in AutoCAD, which was pretty new at the time. Computers in general were pretty new at the time. So I had to learn computers, AutoCAD, and surveying all at the same time. But I got enough figured out that I was suddenly, a valuable employee. And eventually I just started my own company. I just worked from home once the internet got powerful enough, and once PDF technology became available, I could work through email. So I said, that's it. I'm not working in an office anymore. I'm going to work at home and just take work in from various surveyors throughout Ontario. That's what I'm doing. And that's what I've been doing now for over 10 years, working out fine. So what's that got to do with this tractor? Well, I'm set up pretty good here in this shop, and I still like to work on projects. I still like to turn nuts and bolts and use my tools, and I like cool projects. So I typically go on Marketplace and I'll find something and I'll buy it cheap and I'll drag it home and I'll get it running. Well, this tractor came up, and I had 4 MTD lawn tractors at the time, and I'm running out of space. So when I saw this one, I thought, well, I could put the blade on this. It came with a lawnmower deck. It's got a rototiller on the back. Yeah, it's 5 times as expensive as the typical $500 tractors I buy. But I'm curious, and quite frankly, it brought me right back to the time I graduated high school and started manufacturing and learning about quality control. This, in my mind back then, this thing represented the enemy. This is what I was trying to achieve. This is early 80s Kubota B5100E, 2-wheel drive, subcompact tractor. So it's a real tractor, has all the features, has locking differential, independent rear brakes, it has, 2-speed PTO at the back, PTO in the front to run a blower or the mower deck. It's got a lot of things going on. Diesel engine. It's a tractor. It's just small. So I thought, it kind of felt like I was, giving in. It kind of felt like, if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. But in a sense, I was just more curious. What were they building back then in the early 80s that tape I had made basically discussed? Basically, that program I had recorded was, in effect, this machine in my mind. So I picked it up, didn't take a hard look at it when I bought it, put it on the trailer, brought it home. And that's where I'm at. This tractor is worth 5 times one of my other tractors, no doubt about it. It just does everything. It is built solid. It's one tough tractor, and it's going to do a lot of work around here effortlessly. It pulls a lot of weight. It lifts a lot of weight. It doesn't complain. It's got lots of different gear ratios, whatever I want to do. If I want to creep along, no problem. If I want to get up and go, put it in 6th gear and go. But I still feel a little guilty. I feel a little guilty because I was one of those guys that wanted desperately to see manufacturing in North America be equal to this. At the time, in the early 80s and late 70s, no way. No way. The cars they were building in North America compared to the cars they were building in Japan, you just couldn't argue that Japan was making much better quality in the product. So a lot of people, would start buying Honda Civics and Toyotas and stuff, and I wouldn't. I would always buy old American cars and be working on them all the time, but that's okay. I'm being loyal. And I still am today. I've never bought a Japanese car, but I decided to buy the Japanese tractor because it was old and it kind of fit into my theme of, well, here's another old thing. Let's check this out. Let's talk about this. What kind of things are going to break on that? And how do you fix this? And so far, nothing's really broken, so I can't really do a big project on it, but I will. I'm sure I'll break it. I'm pretty good at breaking things. So here I was going into the late 80s, working in the factory, thinking, yeah, we're going to catch up with the Japanese, no problem. We got this quality thing figured out. All the companies across North America now are changing their ways. It's going to be great. We're building stuff, no problem. Well, come the 90s, the mid-90s, and I just never thought in a million years we would just do some free trade thing across the world. And but I just never foresaw what we would just, all this improvement we were making in North America, I just never thought we would just give it away. And we did. China was the one that picked up the baton there and started running with it. They just started manufacturing everything. You know, late 90s into the 2000s, all of our factories just left the country and went to China because, of course, these people will work 14 hours a day or more. They'll work 7 days a week. They'll work for $1 or $2 a day. How are we supposed to compete against that? It's a crisis. China now owns the world. They make everything. It's all junk. We don't have good quality anymore. I don't know how we got into this situation where China's supplying everything. Boatloads of crap coming across the ocean, straight into the big Walmarts of the world, and everyone's flocking in there to save $2 or $3 on a pair of shoes. It just kills me. Why can't we build something like this? Why can't we build factory after factory after factory and get people enthusiastic about creating things again with their hands? Turning wrenches, welding, bending metal, using big machinery to make really good items. So, in summary, that's my take on the whole deal. Japanese are known for their quality. I bought a quality tractor sort of as an experiment just to see if they're really as good as they say. Like, this is old. I'm sure new John Deeres are just as good as new Kubotas. I can't test. I don't know. I'm just saying, compared in the vintage field, what was good in the early 80s in Japan versus what was good in the early 80s in North America. That's the kind of thing I can compare to right now. So unfortunately, my time in manufacturing, in factory work, was brief. I really thought I would just do that my entire life. You know, retire from the first factory I worked in. But it didn't work out that way. Kind of worked out better. It forced me to learn a new trade, a new skill, and I'm quite happy working in my pajamas from home. Okay, so with any luck, this thing will break and cause all kinds of problems, and I'll just trash it like you wouldn't believe. Oh, don't, stick to North American stuff. Don't buy this crappy Japanese stuff. But it hasn't happened yet. So far, my experience with my first Japanese vintage tractor has been pretty good. And we'll keep hammering on it. We'll keep pounding on it. We'll keep trying to break it. And of course, I will report on that. So stay tuned. If you're into these old tractors or into equipment at all, I mean, I got toys too. You've seen my stuff. I've got amphibious 16-wheelers built in North Bay, Ontario in the 70s. I've got a trike built at the Argo plant from the 80s. And I've got a quad, a Polaris quad. So North American stuff is typically my thing. But you're never going to see a Chinese product in my shop. I'm never going to be wrenching one of those throwaway Chinese mini bikes, or I'm not going to put in one of those engines built like looks like a Honda, but it's not. It's a Chinese clone. I'm just not gonna. Yeah, I know everybody slaps those engines in. They're cheap, easy to be had, and they run on down the road. But there's no way they're going to be running on down the road in 40 years. There's just no way anything Chinese is going to be running in 40 years. The stuff I've got, yeah, you need to tune it, you need to work on it, but it's still functional. 40 years later, quite pleased with this stuff. All right, that's it. That's my story about why I have a Japanese tractor. Hope you let me get away with just this one. I don't think really there's any, I don't think people really get antsy about, Japanese versus American lawn tractors. There's a lot of Kubota fans. Okay, take care, folks. We'll see you next time. Next time's going to be a project. I got my welders working, so let's see if we can't, I got to learn how to weld all over again. So maybe I'll do a video on welding for newbies. Take care. Cheers.